Today I'm welcoming Cathy Williams to the podcast. Cathy, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited for my listeners to hear your story. So we're going to go ahead and start with what it is that you do, Cathy.
So good to be here, Catherine. So I am a community facilitator and trainer in movement and expressive art therapy techniques. So I started my business Intuitive Self back in 2016, and my whole
Mm-hmm.
premise is to create spaces and resources and experiences for people to connect more deeply with their body and connect with their internal resources, their body wisdom, and strengthen their relationship with their intuition.
I think that is so amazing on so many levels because the one thing that we neglect, I think, so much, which I don't know why, but is just how we are in tune with our body and we just kind of plow through life and we work through the pain and we don't really connect with ourselves. And that is so important. So, what is one thing that you think is the most important thing about what it is that you do? I mean, and that could be an example of like who might be your ideal client. Someone might come to you. How might you help them?
So, most of the people that I work with are women, and what they're experiencing is a disconnection from their body. So, whether it is through something, a traumatic event, or experiencing anxiety and stress in their body, for whatever reason, they have bypassed their emotions, they've numbed or distracted themselves from feeling what's there to be felt. And in that process, they have almost dissociated from the understanding that they are in a body and that their body carries all of their life experiences and the emotional states that come through in those life experiences. So what I get commonly from the women that I work with is that they know that they want to develop that relationship with self and, in the well-being space of self-care and self-compassion, but they don't really know where to start. There is, barriers to that
Mhm.
connection, whether it's limiting self-beliefs or whether it's not feeling safe in their body to begin with, or just a resistance and hesitation around creative self discovery, which is how I like to promote what it is that I do. Because even though this is deep therapeutic work, I really like to encourage a playful and curious approach to weaving these modalities into everyday life.
I think that's fantastic. And just for the listener, I mean, just think about how, for example, you might feel if you're really stressed and then you go to the beach and just that immediate feeling of, relief and how your body responds to that. You're kind of doing like a deeper, higher level of that where you're just making people aware of how that stress, how that trauma, how that weight, if you will, is so connected to our bodies. And I'm going to assume, just from just random things that I know, that if that's not taken care of, that can really start degrading your health in general.
Absolutely. I feel like it is something that when we become so disconnected from our bodies. And in my experience, I was living solely in my mind. Like I was in very overproductive mode, very busy, 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 doing, doing, doing. And I didn't pick up on the different ways I was holding anxiety and stress in my body and what that meant for tension, but then noticing that I would be getting really sick. And for my life, that showed up through burnout in my work, in my previous work. And so it almost became this catalyst for me getting into this field and understanding the importance of these practices that I've developed.
I was going to ask if there was some sort of catalyst that kind of triggered you to do this, and you're making it sound like, you had a past life, if you will, that was very stressful. So, were you working in like a corporation, or what was the your past life that kind of led you to this?
So I was working in international community development work, and I still am a community worker, and I work with people in this field, but I was participating often in like team leader roles and roles that had a lot of responsibility for looking after volunteer teams in either developing countries or working with at-risk young people within Australia and New Zealand, where it was very intense, it was very on the ground, and I think that I
Mhm.
almost, as an empath, I took on the stories that I was hearing. I feel like I absorbed that
Oh,
into my
yeah.
body, and I got probably too emotionally connected to the devastation that I was seeing. And that all led to me not only getting quite jaded and feeling like, how can what's my role in this, but also being burnt out because I didn't have practices in place that supported my ability to process what I was experiencing and like actually increase my capacity for resilience. I was sort of overstretching myself.
That makes perfect sense, and I think that resonates with a lot of people and how we do that, especially women. Just overstress ourselves and just keep piling things on, and then we kind of get to a breaking point, and that's where you can come in and help us kind of realign ourselves. Now, do you have any online services, or is it all in person? Or I'm going to have your information to connect with you, but I just kind of give people an idea of, how can they access this sort of practice that you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, during all of the 2020 events of the world, my work moved online, which was amazing,
Mhm.
and meant that I now have a really far and wide reach and am able to access people when they're in the comfort of their own homes. So, as much as I love running in-person workshops, this has allowed me to connect one-on-one with people online or to also run group workshops online where community gathers. And I guess the two main ways that I work online are working one on one. So that's individual sessions that go for an hour and a half where we deep dive into what the client is moving through, what has charged for them at the moment, what challenges they're working on. And I think that that environment's quite supportive for them because they get to be in the privacy and comfort of their own home while they're moving and experiencing the processes. And I encourage them to get their own collection of different creative art materials so that they can be participating in that during our session, but then they have all of these beautiful tools that they can use in their everyday life outside of our session as well. And then I run public workshops online, which are often themed. And the main thing that I'm doing at the moment is actually running professional development workshops and training for other practitioners in the wellbeing space. So that might be counselors or youth
Wonderful.
workers or social workers that already work with clients or groups. And I'm supporting them with how they can start to weave in more body based movement art therapy practices into their existing work with clients.
I love that, and it just puts a fine point on how important it is to again just be so in tune and basically give your this left side of your head a break, because that's where all the work gets done, and then our creativity's on the other side. So if you feel super stressed out, just take a breath, do something creative, and then when you come back, you can be that much more effective. But yeah, once we neglect a lot of that stuff that you're talking, everything that you talked about, really. yeah, that's when we start really breaking down. And then, of course, and what some of the examples you were giving too, if something traumatic happens too, then that's when we really start getting lost. So it's great to kind of find that joy, that creativity, that playfulness, that again, that we always find very much in our childhood, which is how I'm going to segue into my next question for you, is when you were young, had no responsibility and everything was all, hopefully stress free. What did you do when you woke up and your feet hit the ground when you were younger?
You know, it's funny that I stumbled into this role because the greatest things that gave me joy and were my way of finding happiness as a child was different creative means. So I loved dancing. Mum enrolled me in jazz ballet and tap classes from I think I was probably the age of 7. So did that every Friday and loved that self-expression outlet and moving my body and
Hmm.
just being in rhythm with the music. Um, and I was always encouraged to play with paints and arts. And I loved writing short stories in school as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And also just basically says you are exactly where you need to be too, because you are very passionate about that. And you're just, sharing it with other people. Yeah, you could have this fun too. I mean, and it's so funny too because when we get older, people think that they need to give up that freedom, that dance, that, just that joy because we're supposed to be so serious now. We can't
Mm,
play anymore, but it's so
yes, bring back
vital
play.
to our exactly for playtime. When's recess? Um, because that's when the life was its best. We had school, but then we also were like, yes, we get to go play now. So
Yes.
it's medicinal. I mean, for the most part, it is really, really medicinal. And I need to ask then, what is it you do now to unplug? Do you still find yourself breaking into dance? What do you do now that you really can unplug and kind of take a break from your regular day-to-day life?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I am lucky enough to, when I'm facilitating and when I'm, creating materials, I get to have this creative output, which I really enjoy. But I do spend a lot of time on the computer as well. So for me to unplug from the screen, I like to spend a lot of time in nature, like to surround myself with natural waterholes and trees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really, I think that is a beautiful way for me to ground, but also just to switch off and to yeah, to switch off really. Um, when I find
Yes,
myself,
so many people refer to nature as kind of their outlet, and it's so easy. Just go outside. If you
yeah,
need a break, just start simply by just going outside and looking at the trees without any music, without any, you know, distraction whatsoever. It really does help ground us again, I think.
it's amazing the shift that can happen. Like when we just take that pause and yes, sit with a tree, it's it's a really beautiful moment to share.
And I do like too that, essentially I asked you what do you kind of do to unplug it, and it's kind of like, well, that's my job now.
Yes.
Which is which is so great. As you get to express yourself basically anytime that you're working with a client, which is I think so wonderful. What is like a definition of success for you with a client?
I love that. Okay. I A few things come to mind. When I'm working one-on-one with people and, you know, at the start of a session, I like to, even if on their intake form or in the previous session before, they've flagged something that's pressing for them that they want to explore. I always begin the session with checking in with what's present, like what in this moment on that day has the most charge for them. And from there, when they're verbally processing and just exploring what's there to begin with, it's always so fascinating for me to see their process unfolding as it starts to sort of land what they're really working with.
Mhm.
And I think that sort of self-identification is a really beautiful, simple example of success because the way that I work is, I'm a facilitator, I'm a guide. I believe that everyone has the answers and the resources within them. And it's just my role in that season of your life to support you to use these tools to work out what that is. And you also use these tools to support you in regulating yourself and being able to transform whatever that is. And in those moments where something clicks and shifts, and then we're able to dive in, whether that's moving the body and processing it out on the page with colors, lines, and shapes, or doing a different visualization, whatever intuitive tool comes in that moment for me to share and guide them through, it's that moment where they're like, oh, that's what it is. That's what it is. And we're able then to, something
I
opens
love
where
it.
they're able to go in. Um, the other success that I count is in my public workshops, whether that's online or in person. Some people are regulars and some people are coming for the first time. But the way that I like
Mhm.
to set up the space is really to encourage this community environment of non-judgment. And yes, of course, that's between each other, but it's mainly for themselves. It's when this work is so new to
Yes.
them, when this way of being with themselves is so new, we can have all these stories and all this judgment and this self-talk narrative come up. But after a process that we each do individually, there is this moment where I invite them to get into a pair or a small group, and I've got a particular process for a debrief, for a sharing. And it's always so beautiful because, and that's the moments where I wish I could, almost be in the group myself, but what I'm witnessing is this really beautiful sharing process where they don't know each other's names, they don't know what each other does for a living, but they are sharing of themselves in a beautiful, connective way that is vulnerable and real, and they're being witnessed in their humanness. And that's success for me.
Hmm. You touched about something that I definitely have to dig into further because the one thing that I run into a lot is when I tell people, you know what, if you should go back and paint or draw or do something really creative, they immediately think I can't do that, or I'm not an artist, or I'm not a dancer, or I'm not whatever. How do you get people past that to where they can just kind of let go and, maybe, like I said, remind them of art class when they were in the fifth grade, or kind of get it out of their head that it's not about drawing a still life. It's about expressing
Mm.
yourself and it's about being creative. How do you get people kind of over that hump of trying to do some of these things?
Yeah, it is such a common one. And our
You're
self-talk
right.
and self-doubt and the way that we also compare ourselves. Like I have so much compassion for that because, we all have stories or moments that we can probably link back to when we got told, or that we can't do something or that we're a bad, artist or
Exactly.
dancer or, whatever it is that has made us insecure or self-conscious about exploring that part of ourselves. Um, but I like to challenge it. I like to gently challenge it and be like, compared to what? Compared to what expectation of what you're holding over yourself to look like or for the end product.
Exactly.
A lot of art therapy is less about the end product and more about the process and exploring and enjoying the process. Um, so the way that I like to frame all the invitations is that they are invitational. It really is about listening to your body and how your body wants to move. It's not about looking a certain way. It's not a structured choreographed dance. It's intuitive and close your eyes, bring your focus internal. It's not about looking outside or people looking at you. It's actually about like, oh, feeling into how your body feels in this moment. And a process that I really encourage is what I call the impulse stretch. So, and anyone can do this. This is something people can start doing after they hear this podcast, where, they can close down their eyes and just notice like a particular sensation in their body. Maybe there is a tension or an itch or some part of their body that's sort of, pulsating and calling out to them. And what is the immediate response for how you want to move that body, how you want to adjust that? Maybe it is a shoulder roll, maybe it's stretching your arms out, and start to follow the impulses of how your body just wants to move in that moment. And of course, then we can bring in some music and just sort of follow what it feels like to move that body part and then how that body part is connected to another body part. And then you're moving. It's taking out this big, daunting idea that movement has to look a certain way.
Exactly. And be good. It doesn't have to be perfect.
That's not.
It's just about getting started and doing kind of what your body feels like doing, and just
Mm.
let it. Don't hold back, just let it.
Yes. Yeah, there's so much giving yourself permission, like allowing the fun to be had, allowing the flow to find you.
Perfect. You are going to help so many people. So I am so excited for what it is that you do. And even my listeners if I mean, reach out to you, that would be fantastic. But just if anything else to help them kind of get over just some of the things that kind of block them in their own minds. We are sometimes our worst enemy when it comes to that sort of thing. And it is just a very natural process. It's something that has been done at the beginning, since the beginning of time, where people would dance and sing and express themselves. We just know that just because when you think about older cultures, there was just so much art around. I mean, they it's a very 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 natural thing, and to kind of go back and just recapture that within ourselves is, like I said, it's medicinal. It's so important, and it's fun. It's just
Yeah,
simply fun.
it's a universal language.
It really is. It really is. Well, thank you so much again. Like I said, I'll have your contact information in the notes of the podcast, but I appreciate you so much for being here today. It's been so helpful.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for the conversation.